difference between homeschooling and any other normal schooling like private schooling and government sponsored schooling. One main difference is environment. In homeschooling, the child have the environment to study on their own, and the environment is also cool for the child to be able to understand the content one-on-one with the tutor. Number two, some parents are dissatisfied with their current curriculum, that is the CBC, and they actually don't know where their children will land. And so they prefer to homeschool their children where they can offer different curriculums. Like we have ACE, which is an American system. We also have IGCC.
So what is ACE?
ACE is the Accelerated Christian Education. This system is more of, it developed more on character and academic, where children work more independently on their paces, and they cover their paces within the speculated time. In this system, the children are independent and they are expected to work at their own paces.
So in short, homeschooling provides the parents, or rather, it's the parents are able, the desire to provide religious instruction to their children. Is that right?
Now, yeah, one good thing about homeschooling is that a parent can decide to provide religious doctrine, the one they are comfortable with. If they are Muslims, if they are Christians, if they are Hindus, they can be able to provide at speculated times as compared to other normal schooling where the child has to be fixed with the religion being offered by the school.
So could you kindly expound more on the moral instruction for moral instructions that homeschooling instills, or rather, the children are able to gain more moral, is it moral advantage, moral behavior? As in, when you look at a child, this is just my observation. We are not being biased to per se, as in, for instance, saying that children who learn from the normal schooling system are not morally upright. We're just I'm just fascinated with children, or rather kids who have gone through homeschooling. I've met a couple of parents who have homeschooled their children, and there's something unique about homeschooled children. When you look at especially their moral aspect, they seem to be really grounded and, in behavior. Is it behavioral change? So probably is it that when you look at, if you compare now homeschooling in terms of moral instruction and public schools, or rather than normal schools, would you say that homeschooling instills more of moral behavior than public schools?
Thank you. Now, the desire to provide moral instructions, just as we read from the books or the book of Proverbs 22, the parents are guided to train their children the way they should go, that when they grow up, they should not depart from it. That is from the Bible. The desire of God was the parent giving a moral training for their children. That was the desire of God. But being that most of the parents were a bit busy, they committed to their duties and jobs, they were not able to give the moral instructions to their children. And so most of the parents decided to take their children in normal schooling. And when you take a child in normal schooling, you have somebody who is giving moral instruction to your children, who you can't be able to follow up because it's a teacher who is trained by the, for example, the Teacher Service Commission. They went into teachers' colleges and they're the ones who are taking care of your children. They may not have the vision of what you have for your children. Now, in homeschooling, the parents get the time to develop a vision for their children, and they'll be able to mastermind what they want their children to achieve.
Yeah, that's a very good elaboration there, and thank you for that. On to our next question. There is, as in my observation as an individual, I've also seen that how homeschooling is being operated. It runs on non-traditional approach. Probably if you could just dig deep into it, what really is the non-traditional approach in the homeschooling curriculum or system?
Yeah, in normal curriculums, students are fixed to different certain subjects. For example, if the timetable is math, physics, and chemistry, they're fixed into that from the beginning of the term to the end. But in homeschooling, the parents can bring in traditional things, different things, sorry, where the children can learn different ideas. Like they can even get time to go and visit different areas of their learning to get to know what happens than just getting into a fixed curriculum. So homeschooling helps a child to have a mind that is focused into different items than the way they are in traditional learning system.
If I may have understood your point, I think you're more on that homeschooling provides a child, or rather they build children to become free thinkers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're still on to non-traditional approach. Of course, I went through the normal schooling system, and trust you me, homework. Hey, my friend, zile viboko utapokea the next morning if you've not done homework, they are just overwhelming.
Yes, sir.
And then waking up very early in the morning, very strict timings. Very early in the morning, if probably you went to a school that, like for instance, most public or rather private schools do have school bus. They usually come pick the kids very early, so your child has to wake up very early. And this is not just probably the upper level students, even the lower students. They have to wake up very early as 5 a.m. And this is probably a 7-year-old boy or girl waking up very early, coming back home very late and very tired. You have no time to, as in you're burned out as a pupil or as a student. So how is it like in the homeschooling space or curriculum or class setup? How is it like?
Yeah, I just want to give you another scenario of a parent who now she's homeschooling her child. She used to have a child in let me say KG1, kindergarten, and the child was picked from home at 4:30 a.m. in the morning.
Wow,
because the bus had to go around
and pick
go
kids
around
in
and pick
various
kids.
homes and in various different locations.
Yeah. So the parent decided to follow up about this child. She realized that when the child gets into the bus, the child sleeps all through up to school.
Oh my goodness.
And then the teacher will write on the diary that the child sleeps in class all the time. Now it's not a mistake of the child, because the child, as a young child waking up as early as 4, it's not very healthy for them. And there are so many things they're losing in between. So in homeschooling, the timetable, we are not moving into a traditional method where the children have to wake up and adopt into a tradition where they have to do everything at a certain norm. So in homeschooling, in most occasions, the teachers come into their homes, or the parents are tutoring the children into their homes, and in most occasions, the lessons begin at 8. Just like normal schooling, when the lessons begin at 8. But what do they do? They have to pick them at 4.
Yeah.
For them to arrive in school at 8. Because there's a traffic jam, everything. When they pick them later than that, they will arrive late because there's a lot of traffic jam. Let's just say, for example, the child is learning in Kileleshwa, and the parents are living in Nairobi, in Kahawa Ndani, Thika Road, for example. In that scenario, the child has to be picked at 4, okay, for them to arrive in school on time. But in homeschooling, the child can wake up at the right time,
so
get prepared for school,
Yeah, so they have enough time to just rest and wake up when they are fresh and ready to face the day, right?
Yes.
So in short term, you mean that the curriculum, or rather homeschooling, is more flexible? They are flexible.
Yeah, and also flexible. For example, let's say, for example, if a parent wants to take the children to, for example, a trip. Let's say, for example, a trip in Mombasa. They can decide to go for a trip, and later on they compensate for the lesson. Okay, with the teacher, or with the tutor. Yeah. So it is easier than traditional schools where
you're fixed.
Yeah, you're fixed and you have to do things according to the program of the school.
So something interesting also about homeschooling is that really got my attention, or rather my interest. How do you as a professional teacher and teaching in the homeschooling system, how do you as a teacher get to handle different children with different capacity in terms of learning, or if they are slow learner or they are fast learner? How do you balance those two kind of people or students in your class?
Okay, you say one. I just said homeschooling is one-on-one. So it is one teacher, one student. So it is easy. You move with the pace of the child. If you have a class of 40 students, for example, in government schools you have classes of 60 students, and the teacher is one, and the time is 40 minutes or 30 minutes. You'll find that the teacher has only, and I say only, the teacher will have only 1 minute per student. In homeschooling, the teacher will have 1 hour per student, per subject. So the teacher has more time per student, per subject. And then the child gets more time to get the content of what is taught.
I think that is really interesting, how that system works, and how I would really be happy if more parents would adapt it, and homeschooling institutions, or rather a bigger population would go for it. I mean, in shorter terms, I mean that I wish this government, or rather this, in Kenya, would have a choice of education. Is it choice of education, right?
Yeah.
Where we are, as in it's okay to take your child for homeschooling, to decide whether you want to take your child for homeschooling or public schools. I mean, I also do not want to sound biased that the public schools are bad, because before homeschooling, we all went to normal schools.
Yeah. I remember, just a minute, I remember there was a parent who asked me, and they told me that their children, they want to get time to play with their friends. So they were asking me, how do they do it in homeschooling? Will my child get time to play with their friends? Now, during COVID, they've realized that the children need to stay at home, and parents need to stay at home.
And
though though we develop COP, there's something called COPs. COPs is where student